name is Lana Vandenberg, and I hail from Dawnbreakers Toastmasters. This year, to do the various forums that we've had around the city, the Toastmasters have been asked to moderate, so that's how I came to be here. My colleague, Doug Hunter, will be timing the speeches, the questions, the answers, etc. as time goes by. So just to kind of go through a few housekeeping points, they're asking that handheld campaign signs are permitted except on stage or near the podium. So where it is right now is fine. There is no smoking in the building or just outside, please. The washrooms are, some of you may know this building already, they're just straight down the hallway here. I ask that you turn off your cell phones or keep them on quiet, and that includes candidates, so as not to disturb, questions and answers, that sort of thing. And just to kind of give you a brief overview of what's going to be taking place, the candidates are going to give their introductions. They'll be given 6 minutes each to give their introductions. Then we're going to go into a 10-minute break. This will allow you to, because we're going to have a mic situated just over here so you can line up to ask your questions, or you have the opportunity to write your questions, and there's a box just located at the table there to my left. And then that will take, and then when the break starts, then it's going to come with your questions, and hopefully you'll hear your answers that you want. So, with any further ado, I would first like to introduce our candidates.
A little bit. Yeah.
Can't hear me?
Just a little bit louder, I think.
A little bit louder?
Yeah. How are you?
Everybody can hear,
Are you okay?
Everybody can hear me okay?
No, turn it up.
Some people need it up a bit.
Okay, just kind of wave or something if you can't hear me. Is that a little better? So our candidates tonight, we tried to do this alphabetically, but we had one who's a little late. I'm not going to point him out. Anyway, so we have Dave Colburn, Mimi Williams, Trish Prouse.
Tish.
Sorry?
Tish.
Tish.
That's okay.
Pardon me. Tony Katrina, Terry Rolls, and Enefi.
Go by Daniel.
Daniel? Okay. These will be our candidates. So our first candidate to do his introduction will be Dave Colburn.
I think this will work. Maybe not. Can we just pause? This is a rather flopping around. It needs to be secured. Thank you, Sonia. Good evening, everyone. As many of you know, I live in this area. I live in the Bellevue community, a few blocks away, and I've lived there for 24 years. I've also been a trustee on the Edmonton Public School Board, representing this community and many communities in Ward 7 for the past 9 years. In this rapidly changing world, more than ever, we need elected officials who have the courage, intelligence, and vision to lead change. It is not enough simply to understand our world. One must have the capacity to change our world. In my 9 years on the school board, I have led much change. My motions to eliminate the sale of junk food, create the first student advisory committee, and the first trustee task force are but a few examples of ideas that have created historic change within the Edmonton Public School District. This proven leadership to create change in a complex world with complex issues and complex personalities will serve me well on council. The following are, in my view, huge opportunities to do things differently on this next council. Sprawl. Urban sprawl exists in Edmonton. Council will not admit it, but it is there. Sprawl costs taxpayers money, puts more cars on the road, increases pollution and congestion, and places greater pressure on school boards to close schools in mature communities. something we know all too well about in Newton. It is time to change how we manage growth. It is time to say no to new development and yes to revitalizing mature communities. Since 2008, 8 development proposals have come before council involving new developments on the outskirts of the city. Despite the fact that Ward 7 is comprised entirely of mature communities, the incumbent in Ward 7 has demonstrated his support for sprawl by voting to approve all of these new neighborhood proposals. More disturbingly, the incumbent has accepted campaign funding from companies involved with 6 of these 8 proposals. Voting to support a business proposal from a company that supports your political career is a conflict of interest. Infrastructure. Our roads, sidewalks, alleys, and sewers are in desperate need of repair. It is time that council prepared a credible plan to address our $10 billion infrastructure deficit. It is time to elect a council that will make infrastructure a priority, not an afterthought. And it is time that Ward 7 residents had decent sewers, sidewalks, and streets. Preserving agricultural land. I am committed to preserving prime agricultural land, not developing it. The recent decision to develop the Horse Hills sector made clear this council is not committed to protecting our valuable local farmlands. Imagining the wonderful market garden farms in the northeast becoming paved streets or industrial parks in the next 20 to 30 years is deeply disturbing. An editorial in the Rat Creek Press dated April 2013 identifies some curious views expressed by the incumbent in Ward 7. And I quote, "In a debate to allow citizens to comment on the city's food and urban agriculture strategy last fall," Katarina said, "if you own the land and you want to grow berries, go ahead. If you don't own the land, I would say the same thing. Get the heck out of the way. You have no interest." He followed that up by stating that unless a person had, quote, "skin in the game," he didn't think their opinion was worth being presented to council and heard, end of editorial. I believe that all elected officials should encourage all citizens to express all of their views on any matter that is important to them. I believe all Edmontonians have skin in the game when it comes to protecting our valuable local farmland. Development dollars in campaigns. An article in the Edmonton Journal this past June revealed that 56% of campaigns for current councillors and the mayor in the 2010 election came from the development sector. This is unhealthy for democracy. The incumbent in Ward 7 received $28,000 in campaign funds from development companies in 2010. Not surprisingly, only one development proposal submitted to council in the past 3 years has been denied. Incredibly, no member of this council has withdrawn from a development decision claiming conflict of interest. Many weeks ago, I announced I would not accept campaign contributions from any development companies. I will not be in a conflict of interest when I consider a development proposal as a councillor. If elected, I will push for electoral reform consistent with Manitoba and the federal government. In these jurisdictions, labor and corporations are prohibited by legislation from contributing to any political campaign. We are becoming an increasingly diverse society. Edmonton is experiencing explosive growth of new Canadians. In a few years, more Aboriginals will live in this city than any other city in the country. Our Aboriginal nation is the founding nation of this country. We must acknowledge and celebrate the Aboriginal community's position in the history of this nation. Our multicultural communities bring rich diversity to the city, yet these unique communities have unique challenges. I am committed as an elected official to opening wide the doors of dialogue with Aboriginal and multicultural communities. Homelessness must be eliminated. We must be relentless in reducing poverty. All citizens have the right to live in a safe, caring, and inclusive society. All citizens.
So I have to apologize because my alphabet is obviously different from everyone else's. Oops. I'd like to call upon Tony Catarina to come up and do her.
I thought it was just me. I did pay attention in school, but that's okay. Certainly, I think we've seen an example again this evening, and I thought tonight we'd have a time to express some of the issues and the positives that are going on here, but unfortunately we have to continue hearing this venom that goes on about campaign contributions and Horse Hill and things like that, where I don't think that Mr. Colborne even understands what's going on in this city, because he hasn't taken the time to actually do his homework and research a lot of these issues. So
I thought it was good.
with saying that, certainly introduction, some of you do know me, some don't. I am the current councillor in Ward 7. It's been Ward 7 for 3 years. Prior to that it was Ward 3. Some history about myself. I'm an immigrant, and certainly I don't think anybody can tell me how important it is to be inclusive as a city, because I've lived it. Arrived here in 1962 at the age of 5. And this city has been actually very, very good to me and my family, and some of the challenges that they face, just like every other immigrant family that comes to this city. Something else that I'd like to say about me: the 6 years on council. What you might have seen is the council work. What you haven't seen is my 6 years leading the Aboriginal Initiative for the City of Edmonton, being involved in the Treaty 6 Memorandum of Understanding, signing the accord with the Aboriginal community, also with the Métis that we just signed in the last number of months. So I don't think that there's anyone that can tell me the value and the importance of our Aboriginal community here in Edmonton. It's 12,000 years old, and certainly it is to be cherished. Some of the other things, and I didn't want to spend the 6 minutes rebutting Mr. Colborne's, I guess, accusations. Contributions come from all sorts of things, and certainly contributions from developers come in. As a matter of fact, Federation of Labor just endorsed me today, as a matter of fact, because I work for working families. That's one of my concerns, and they chose me over Mr. Colborne as their leader for working families and labor, and to be a just society when it comes to providing people with a living wage and being able to take care of their own concerns. So certainly that wasn't my intent here this evening. The Horse Hill issue, this has come up twice again. Certainly, if you understand the Horse Hills issues, which Mr. Colborne does not understand, the farmers he's talking about sold that land 25 years ago to developers for millions of dollars. And then they're the same people coming back saying, well, we sold you the land for millions of dollars, but leave it the way it is, don't develop it. Well, I think if somebody came to your property and asked you to do something that you weren't able to do, I don't think that would go over very well. So this is property rights. Anybody in Horse Hill that owns farmland that would like to continue farming, the city has said, absolutely, that is your right, it's your land, you continue to do what you want with it. Those who purchased land 20, 30 years ago that wish now to maybe retire, that's their nest egg. We have hundreds of people in Horse Hill that have 5 acres, 10 acres, 20 acres, and now is the time that they're looking to maybe they're looking for a retirement, and that's their nest egg, to be able to do something with it outside of leaving it there as bare land, because they're not farming it. So I think that that's probably enough for tonight to rebut this. We're here to talk about the positives, concerns that the neighbors have, the neighborhoods all in Ward 7. We are all mature neighborhoods. Each community has unique issues. Some are concerned absolutely about roads and sewers. Others are concerned about crime and safety for the communities. Others are concerned about just being able to get onto a bus service in order to make their lives easier. So everything that I've committed to for the last 6 years is to improve the quality of life for all the citizens of Ward 7, regardless of the issue, how big or how small. That's my responsibility. And over the last 6 years, we've taken thousands of requests for help from citizens. Some very small requests, some a little bit larger, but we make sure that that commitment is there, that anybody's concern is important. no matter how big or how small. And I hope that tonight we can have some good discussion on what some of the concerns are for Newton. I certainly know many of them. Your bike paths outside were a huge concern. I was the one that made sure that that didn't happen, because with bike paths outside, for example, that you couldn't park in front of the hall, the chances of booking this hall without a parking lot, very, very slim. And that was an issue for the community. You don't see them there because I stopped. So those are the things I can get the job done. I know the job. I have the experience to do the job. And I've proven it over the last 6 years that I will take care of Ward 7. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'd like to call upon T. Prowse, please.
Good evening. Briefly, who's not from Newton here? Good, big spread. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tish Prowse. I live in Eastwood. Obviously, it's one of our local communities. I am here in the community. I moved here 5.5 years ago, and I live here with my wife and young son. And the things about our community keep us in an incredibly unique position in this city. Many of you can attest that a large percentage of our populations in the entire ward, as correctly identified as being made up entirely of mature neighborhoods, are also made up of original homeowners or descendants of those original homeowners. This is very unique in the town. Most of those people have big attachments to the ways these communities run, work, the businesses that were here, the schools that were here. And many people continue to come into this area because of their ancestral ties. And that's being disrupted. It's being disrupted greatly from two very, very significant things. One of them is the increase of population that is coming to Alberta and is putting a very large strain on housing in not only our town but surrounding. And they are looking for places to live. That's the first attack. And the second attack is the opportunity that is in this town, whereby you can take an older property and subdivide it or rent it out to anybody who you like without any check. And it creates a very dichotomous relationship within communities that is in no way able to be checked. You have two things, ladies and gentlemen, that cannot be checked. And I'm sorry to say, City Council can't do anything about either one of them, or very little. You cannot tell somebody where they can and cannot live. You cannot tell somebody who you can and cannot rent to. And you certainly cannot tell somebody where and where they cannot build. But there are things that you can do. And that's where I come in. Because we have lots of issues that that gets presented to you every day. The urban sprawl, land, infill development, and that's a big one for our communities, infill development. And you also have roads and airports and arenas and funding, and you can go down the list of all the issues that are here. But I need to ask you quite clearly and definitively, if you don't have somebody in council who is able to clearly relay your concerns and have them addressed within the context of what the city is doing, what good are your opinions, or those of the councillor candidates? If you cannot effectively communicate with the other people in council, with city administration, it doesn't matter what the issues are. Now, I have 10 years of experience communicating between international governments, national governments, non-profit organizations, builders and developers, local villages, and religious leaders, all for one spot of land. That is a lot more complicated than dealing with Horse Hill. It's a lot more detailed than dealing with an infill project. And it is a lot more stressful than moving 2 or 3 community groups together. Now, we have a lot of commonality which allows someone in the councillor's position to unite a lot of these areas and deal with your issues. And the only way that's going to happen, folks, is if that person is returned because of their ability to communicate, their ability to listen, their ability to influence once in power as a councillor with the rest of the city. Because every other ward has their issues and they want to push them too. There are people in the southwest and southeast that really want those new communities. How do you draw people back to these areas to open the school? You can't force the school to open. You have to create the demand. And that's done by effective communication, by ways of marketing and promoting this board. And when that's done from in the councillor's office, that is far more effective than in any other position that you can get in this town. And that is the only way that we are going to see true change and revitalization in our communities. Now, I live in Eastwood. How much time do I have, by the way? 1 minute. I live in Eastwood. And I get told all the time by my friends who live on the south side that I live in the bad area of town, and my next door neighbor is the conductor for the Edmonton Opera. How does that make you folks feel when people say that you live in the bad area of town? The only way that's going to change is if you have someone in council marketing this area. And it hasn't happened for 40 years. So give me a try. Thank you.
We'd like to call upon Terry Rose, please.
Hello. Rolls, R-O-L-L-S. I don't know why people have trouble with that. It's like cabbage rolls or Rolls Royce. It's very easy. I'm 56 years old. I've lived most of my life in the ward. I've worked many government jobs in the city and the province. I've had to wear a suit provided for me once a year as a government courier, and I've been covered in filth as a city garbage man. So I know what filth is like. So I'm set for politics now. You've seen my flyer there, and I'm not going to go over that again. I've said it many times before. If you haven't got the flyer here, it's going to come in the mail. I've got 40,000 coming out in the next few days. Hopefully they don't get there on Tuesday. And, I think in our ward, the problem is rebuilding. There's a lot of old houses, and it's a lot of old people, and they don't need big projects. They need furnaces, and they need water heaters, and they need roofs. And they don't need stupid programs like HOPE, where you have to put your house up as collateral for 20 years. We need a more effective program for old people and for poor people. And we need more revitalization. We have 2,000 empty houses in the ward. We have 1,000 no longer being used. Now, that's prime land just sitting there. And people won't want to use it because of this perception of it being a bad ward. Well, it's not a bad ward. I've lived here most of my life. I've never been attacked. My mother lived here most of her life. She's never been attacked. And yet, when I was working census, my workers would say, "Oh, I want to go in there." Well, I don't know how this came about. But we're going to try and change it. Maybe we'll offer incentives to move into the ward. We need young people in the ward. The biggest age group is 50 to 53. We need younger people with kids to keep the schools open, to keep the neighborhoods going. I drove around Beverly in the last few weeks. I knew a lot of people there when I was younger. And I drove around there. I don't see anything new in the last 20 years. I can't point my finger at anything new that's happened there. The Rendell Park is exactly like it was when it was built. the road to the golf course looks like an off-road course. The only pool in the area looks like a Motel 6 pool. And we don't need to give 600 million to a millionaire. We need to give people in the neighborhood thousands. We need little projects in the neighborhood. Just constant revitalization, reinvigorization. And I want to know what you want to hear. I want to know what you think of things, and I'll try and work with you together. Because that's what this ward is all about. That's what every ward should be about. As far as the big projects for the city, I think we should pick one, fund it, do it, pay it off, and then move on to the next one. Not an LRT and an arena and a this and a that. One at a time, just like you do at your house. Pick a project, pay it off, pick the next one, pay it off, move the next one. We're doing way too much for the size of our city. We're way too much in debt for the size of our city. And we're trying to be some people want us to be world class for some strange reason. That's been the mantra. If you've lived through your life, you've heard that again and again and again. Oh, the Oilers are gonna put us on the map. West Hampton Mall is gonna put us on the map. It's not gonna happen. Forget about it and just basic maintenance on your own neighborhoods. Like I said, I've worked in a lot of departments, and I know a lot of people still in every department. I don't have no problem working with them. And I'll have no problem working with you. So if you think you sound good, vote for me, and I'll try to do the best for you.
Thank you, Terry. Next, we'll hear from Mimi Williams.
Thank you very much. My biggest hope right now is I make it through 6 minutes with the shoes on. It's been a long 24 days. My name is Mimi Williams, and I've lived in Ward 7 for just about 20 years. I live in Delton, a mature community like this one, like all of our communities. Since April, when I announced my candidacy, I've knocked on over 8,500 doors, and some of your faces look familiar. I've interrupted some of your bills, I know, and sorry for that. It was important to me to personally contact as many voters as I possibly could, not to tell them what I knew, but to find out what they needed. And there's a whole laundry list of the things that citizens have told me that are important to them. I want to address just a couple of things, what was going on with the two gentlemen here. Mr. Caterina is correct that Mr. Colburn is incorrect with respect to the Horse Hill area plan, but Mr. Caterina is not correct either. So to set the record straight, what happened with Horse Hill is that area was part of an annexation that the province triggered in the 80s to stop Edmonton from annexing St. Albert and Sherwood Park. People bought the land after that as speculators because they anticipated that at some point Edmonton would rezone that land from agriculture to suburban. And that's what this council did this past April. I met a woman whose family has farmed there for generations. She doesn't want to sell her farm. She's crying every day because there's going to be a highway through her farm. So let's get it straight. The city has facilitated basically speculation from international development corporations like Walton International, who heavily funded Mr. Caterina. That's what went on in Horse Hill. So set the record straight. Other things that I have learned over my 20 years of watching what's going on at City Council, and as a journalist writing for View Weekly for the past 5 or 8 years, is the lack of attention that was paid to the infrastructure in mature communities. We had all sorts of money and energy to chase an NHL arena for 5 years, and I was at the forefront of that fight, I'll tell you folks, and I didn't see one of these gentlemen there with me. Sometimes I stood alone, but let's be clear, I didn't back down because it was a bad deal for us, and I still say that today. But instead of chasing that arena, they could have been dealing with the storm sewers, which we have known for 10 years were a problem. Now people in our communities can't sleep when it rains because they're afraid their basement's going to be underwater. This isn't sexy, it's not the NHL, but it's real life. We have ignored the pressing numbers of vulnerable youth. And it used to be the case that First Nations youth were our biggest problem on the streets because they had such a high dropout rate. What we have now is an equal dropout rate amongst New Canadian youth. And that might sound like a school board issue, but as soon as those kids leave school, it's our issue. And there's often a tunnel from dropping out to prison. So we deal with it in policing, we deal with it in crime, and we deal with it on our streets. And we better deal with it or it's gonna get a lot worse. So I'd certainly like to be working on that as your councillor. Another big issue that I've heard about is seniors isolation. There's an awful lot of seniors living alone. And yes, there's organizations that can help them, but I also think the city can provide a hand there too, either with programming or providing space for programming for community groups to help. I was sickened today to hear that Win House 3, which provides shelter to women and children who are new Canadians and immigrants fleeing domestic violence, will shut its doors as soon as the end of this month because we don't have money for them. But we've got $542 million for a hockey rink, and that is shameful, folks. I've got a strong record of community service, and I've got a strong opinion about a whole lot of things. That doesn't mean I don't have a lot to learn, because I certainly do. But at the end of the day, I gave my vote to Mr. Caterina last time, and he's creating a narrative now that he was opposed to that arena throughout his term. That's a lie. He made the motion in October of 2011 to spend $350 million tax dollars. And when it came back at $602 million a year later, he voted again in favor. Only after I announced my candidacy in early April did he switch back to the no side. And he's trying to make it sound like it was that way all along. That's not true. And I'd also like to point out that Mr. Colburn was silent. $70 to $90 million from the provincial education budget will be diverted from that project. He's our school trustee. Again, I was the only candidate standing up for your interests there. One. I've got a minute later. I look forward to your questions. And my name is Mimi Williams. I look forward to your questions after the break. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mimi. And Auntie Daniel.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel, and my last name is Eliakim. I am a recent aborted, and I moved here almost a year now. And upon arriving, the plight of this area, although it does offer the reasonable rent that I was looking for, but upon arriving, I could not help but feel sick to my stomach as to the fate and reality on the ground. So come the announcement that an election is to be held, I am a philosopher. I could not stand about pointing fingers at anybody when I point one finger, 4 other ones are pointing at me. That is the reason why I have decided to run for this candidacy. I am running to offer you hope and alternative. As you can see, the bickering goes on and on and on. However, something is intrinsically missing in the equation, and that is a fundamental attitude towards progress. For you to do anything in life, usually people like to make you believe that you have to have this and that to make it in reality. And that is exactly why I'm here today. Because if you continue to look down that road, what you will see is what happened yesterday at McEwen. We had a forum for students. I swear to God, maybe 10 attended. Why? Well, that is exactly what you're seeing here today. People who have decided that because some group of people have dominated politics, it no longer can be reasonable. Because these people make politics about money, it is no longer going to affect your hearts. Because these people dominate politics with their renditions, they believe that you cannot think for yourselves. I decided that it's high time that somebody at least make a stand. I'm running, and not a penny from anybody has been donated to me, because I believe that I am not here to to lead, but rather to serve, and to serve you diligently and with an open heart, I must be an integral person. My heart too must be clean. So I have asked you, for most of you, all of any one of you that has my pamphlet, you see that I have laid down a basic principle. On 2 grounds, you are to elect me, if possible. One is on your heart, and the other is on the equation that if you actually ponder the implication of this election to this community, to your future, and to your children, I will be the right candidate. Why? For one, the heart goes along with mine, and they will match. Because in service, I will make sure that not only does this community represent the inclusiveness that it is now, that inclusiveness is an official outlook. As you can see, I look around at the usual places I see on 118 are not here today. And the native community that I saw on 118 are not here today. However, for you to change that, you must take a new look. That new look requires that you elect people that actually can foster the necessary change. I could, and I'm asking you now to ensure your votes in me, and I will be the guardian of it, and ensure that what progress is necessary to come to this community is done with all due respect to every individual that lives here. And that framework is based on the foundation that I bring to the table. My initiative is one that says, there is no person that is leading you. If I am supposed to lead you, I will not be here today asking for your vote. I'm here asking for your vote because I intend to serve you. To guard that vote, my intention is a forum that allows for a complete and open transparency, and one that includes the society at one and at large. The opponents have already been saying their point, and none is offering this very point. And I think for that sake, I, Eniafa Daniel, is the alternative in this election. I will be counting on your votes. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. We're going to go and have a 10-minute break. This will allow everyone, if you have a question that you'd like to write down, there is a pamphlets or notepads over here, and you write your question and just put it in the box, or you can just bring them right here to the table. We will be setting up the microphone just over here, so that if you do have a question you'd like to ask, we'll just ask if you form a line in this position here. So 10 minutes, and I will give you a 5-minute warning. Thank you.